Bounties are always a source of hype. There's always a huge anticipation for bounty reveals, even though bounties as of right now don't really matter in the grand scheme of things anymore, in the sense that some individuals have bounties that doesn't really represent them. So when we see a pirate with a 500 million bounty versus one with 1 billion, it's very possible that the one with 500 mil could be stronger. So bounties don't really have that much value in terms of what they represent anymore. If anything, it's mostly just threat levels based on the perception of the world government. So I guess that's realistic in some sense, because the world government aren't all seeing, right? Therefore, they wouldn't be able to keep tabs on everything a person has done, which is why we do see bounties that are low when they should be higher in some instances. I think that's something that we should also take into account. Regardless of all of that though, it is still one of the aspects of One Piece that pulls in a lot of hype, and currently in the story, we are getting closer and closer to the end of Wano. And based on how things are currently set up in this arc, with the idea of Luffy taking on one Yonko down for the count and possibly taking credit for Big Mom as well, I think it's fair to say that a bounty boost like no other is coming. One that I think will be Luffy's highest bounty boost in the series, and I personally think it's going to be a lot higher than what people think, especially considering Luffy's status after Wano, and also his combat ability, as that would be pretty relative to the majority of top tiers in the show. And since Oda has a tendency of going beyond and above, I personally think that Luffy's bounty will surpass that of the Yonko. Luffy will have a bounty higher than 4.6 bill, which is Kaido's bounty, right? Going upwards towards the 5 bill mark, because the end of Wano is a huge turning point for the story, and not only just in terms of the world, but also Luffy's status as a pirate. If Luffy does accomplish what he set out to, then I'd say it's very reasonable for him to get this bounty boost. But let's start from the beginning to understand what factors makes this possible. But before we keep going, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. Now, first things first, let's go back to Luffy's initial bounty boost, which was 100 mil from defeating Doflamingo, which was fairly low considering that he had a much higher boost pre-time skip. So for his first boost in the new world, that wasn't much because of several different reasons. First of all, Doflamingo is a warlord, and Luffy has defeated multiple warlords in the past, so this wasn't something new in the eyes of the world government. Second of all, Luffy didn't have the backing of Morgans, as he was kind of the main contributor of why Luffy's bounty was so massive after Whole Cake. In this particular case, the defeat of Doflamingo was seen as a combined effort between Law and Luffy. They were viewed in the same light in regards to his defeat, which ties into why they had the same bounty boost after Dressrosa. However, there is one thing that we do also have to take into account, and that is that the higher your bounty is, the harder it is for it to increase. So the bump here makes a lot of sense when you take all of these factors into account. We then move on to Whole Cake Island, in which Luffy's bounty rose beyond prediction, and a huge factor in all of this was Morgans, as he played the role of hyping Luffy up to the most extreme lengths, and Luffy was recognized as the leading force in all parties that rebelled against Big Mom. And I guess you could contribute that to Luffy's ability to attract people, as mentioned by Mihawk in Marineford, but in this case, most of the preparation came from Capone and his crew, and it wouldn't be as successful as it was without Capone. Of course, you also have to take into account that Cracker and Katakuri were defeated, which was something that actually happened, so Luffy definitely takes credit there. But the whole thing was mentioned in a way that Luffy was the mastermind behind everything, when in reality there was a lot of context behind what actually happened in Whole Cake. And in this case in particular, Luffy was stated to have had a complete victory against Big Mom, and this is why I think his bounty had such a massive jump. When you win against the Yonko, that isn't something the world government can overlook, which is why we got the 5th Emperor thing, because the only person that could do that much damage to a Yonko should technically be another Yonko. Something that was also mentioned was the formation of the Grand Fleet. This was news that wasn't made apparent till after Whole Cake, so technically his bounty after Dressrosa could have been bigger if this was known. So when it came to his raise in Whole Cake, there was a lot of factors that made this possible, a lot of false hype, but also a lot of legitimate things that Luffy deserves credit for. So let's roll back here a little bit. Luffy's first bounty raise was 100 mil, and that was from Doflamingo's defeat in Dressrosa. The second bounty raise was 1 bill, and that was from his achievements in Whole Cake, 10 times more than his previous raise. And the next one should be exponentially higher because of what he's going to achieve here in Wano. And finally, we come to Wano. And in Wano, the goal here is the total destruction and the complete breakdown breakdown of the Beast Pirates, which is currently taking place right now. The only forces remaining are some of the Beast Pirates, the Fathers, Queen and King, and the main boss himself, Kaido. And interestingly enough, even though it's 3 individuals remaining for the most part, these are by far the hardest battles on Onigashima. The Flying Six have all been defeated, a good portion of the Gifters and Pleasurers are out, and one of the Calamities, Jack, has been defeated as well. So we're almost there. And so when you take into account Luffy's end goal in this arc, it involves the decimation of the Beast Pirates and Kaido. And you also have to remember that the Yonkos have ruled the New World for decades and are a part of the 3 great powers, right? Luffy doing a complete breakdown of a Yonko's crew would be unprecedented from a global perspective, right? And technically, in the eyes of the world government, if a force manages to defeat a Yonko, that force would be recognized as something being greater than the Yonko, therefore possessing a much higher threat potential, and that would obviously translate to their bounties as well, which makes me believe that Luffy's bounty will most definitely surpass that of all of the Yonkos, since Kaido is the Yonko that has the highest bounty. And since Luffy will be the main figure in taking down a force that powerful, it's only natural that the world government would give Luffy a bounty on that scale. Now, some people think it's too early for Luffy's bounty to approach that mark, but when you think about how fast Luffy is growing and Oda's tendency of going above and beyond, I think it's very reasonable. Now, we have to think about Big Mom here as well, who could be a factor in Luffy's next bounty raise. Now, we don't know how Big Mom's story is going to end, and I personally think it's not going to be in Wano, so I think Big Mom will still be around for some time till her plotline comes to an end. Now, it's very likely that Kid will get credit for Big Mom's loss here, but when it comes to Luffy, we have to realize one thing, and that is that Big Mom and Kaido have currently entered an alliance, and one that is recognized by the world government through spies such as X Drake and the CP0. And so what I think we're going to get on the news is not only that Luffy defeated a Yonko, but also that he was responsible for the breakdown of the alliance between Big Mom and Kaido. So not only did he destroy Kaido's crew, but also stop the strongest pirate crew from forming. I think that's something that will be taken into account in regards to Luffy's next bounty raise. It will be regarded as Big Mom and Kaido taking a loss against Luffy, even though Kid might be a factor in Big Mom's defeat. So I think Luffy's bounty will be around 4.7 bill to 5 bill after Wano. And I think this would also make a lot of sense when you take into account Luffy's status after Wano. Technically, Luffy would be the closest person to the One Piece at this point in time, as he would have acquired 3 red poneglyphs in his name, putting him ahead of any Yonko. Now, I don't think Blackbeard has any at this point, and when it comes to Shanks, I don't think he cares about the Pirate King title or any of that stuff in general. Though he might protect the poneglyph because he doesn't want the wrong person to achieve PK, such as individuals like Blackbeard. But overall, in terms of Shanks's standing on becoming PK, I don't think it's there. Now, we do know that there are copies of poneglyphs out there with the rubbings, so that could be how Blackbeard obtains his. But Luffy having all 3 should technically put him in first place as the person closest to the One Piece, and so a bounty above the Yonkos, I think, is deserved. Now, there is a possibility that it could be lower, around 4 billion, you know, maybe closer to Shanks. But again, Oda goes beyond and above with these kind of things. It's gonna be a lot bigger than what people think. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I would appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. I would like to hear your thoughts on what you think Luffy's bounty will be at the end of Wano. Comment down what the amount will be. Subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace. But it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.